The
time for this debate has expired. I call on Government Orders of the Day numbers 1 to 4.
Point England Development Enabling Bill, Committee Stage continued. Energy Innovation, Electric Vehicles and Other Matters Amendment Bill, Committee Stage. Land Transfer Bill, Committee Stage. Te Ture Whenua Māori Bill, Committee Stage continued.
I declare the Housing Committee for further consideration of the Point England Development Enabling Bill, for consideration of the Energy Innovation, Electric Vehicles and Other Matters Amendment Bill and the Land Transfer Bill, and for further consideration of Te Ture Whenua Māori Bill. Mr Chairman.
Mr Speaker, I'll see you in 10 days. Bring it back with you. Members, the Housing Committee on the Point England Development Enabling Bill, the Energy Innovation, Electric Vehicles and Other Matters Amendment Bill, the Land Transfer Bill and Te Ture Whenua Māori Bill. We turn first to the Point England Development Enabling Bill, and the question is that clauses 1 and 2 stand part.
Mr Chairman.
Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I want to speak to the title clause, Point England Development Enabling Bill. Well, what's in a name? There's no clue in the name of this bill that helps you to understand the level of anger and cynicism and disenchantment that this bill has created in the community of Point England. Is there anything wrong with development, with housing, as set out in the bill? It's a bill about development? No. Everybody in Auckland understands that we desperately need to build more houses. People want to see development, but they don't want to see it at all costs. And the fact that Auckland needs more houses built, that it needs more development, as this bill purports to deliver, is not some kind of alibi for every madcap, harebrained scheme that Nick Smith comes up with. And that's what this bill is. Is there anything wrong with enabling? Well, apart from the fact that the bill cuts across the Reserves Act and the Resource Management Act and the established legislated democratic processes designed to give communities a say about developments that are happening in their communities, and try to ensure that the right questions are asked about the environmental effects of proposed development. Apart from that, there's nothing inherently wrong with a development project. And in fact, I would argue, sir, that if the government and Nick Smith had gone about this differently, actually, they could have done the enabling of this project. They could have pursued the development ambitions for the 12-hectare patch of land that we're talking about, without actually poisoning the well of public support for this project. What's more, there's nothing wrong with an enabling bill that seeks to deliver up a patch of land that can be used as commercial redress in a treaty settlement. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And as Speaker after Speaker in this House, in the course of these committee stages debate, has pointed out, there is widespread respect and understanding for Ngāti Paoa and their aspirations to settle their treaty settlement and move ahead and build a platform at Point England for their people to have a marae, to have a place that they can call their own, and actually to build an economic base. So there's nothing wrong with those things, those ideas that are all inherent in the title of this bill, the Point England Development Enabling Bill. But Nick Smith has, as he has on so many times before, has made a pig's ear of this project, this Point England Development Enabling Bill, which I
am going to sort of warn the member that just repeating the name of the bill over and over again gets to the point of being repetitious. It is a very narrow debate, the debate on Clause 1 following a full committee stage. So I am going to ask the member to confine himself to relevant matters, and I'll warn him there aren't many.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. In relation to the development enabling in the title, what the Minister has done with this bill is to take precious parkland at Point England away from a local community that treasures that parkland and strongly believes that that parkland at Point England is needed not for development but for future generations. A community that is very aware that under the intensification plans of the Tamaki Regeneration Company, it's going to have an extra 20,000 people living there, right across the fence from the recreation reserve, as it is now. That's why there is a level of cynicism and disenchantment about this bill. I want to say also that it's an enabling bill for treaty settlement legislation which will follow in this House. And Labor has made it very clear, in fact we put it in writing in our minority view as part of the commentary, that we will support Ngāti Paoa's treaty settlement process when the treaty settlement bill, when it comes to this House, because we are part of a cross-party consensus in this House that holds treaty settlement very dear. This is an enabling bill, sir. It has some objectives that on the face of it sound worthwhile, but it is a bad bill that should not be supported.
The question is that Clause 1, Michael Wood.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Happy to take a call on the